Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of my kitchen, the morning light spilling through the window like liquid gold, catching the faint dust motes dancing in the air. There's a stillness here, a quiet that wraps around me like a familiar blanket. But it's the kind of quiet that presses against your chest, heavy with unspoken thoughts. My name is Bridget, and at 36, I've carved out a life that most would call enviable. 8 years ago, I said I do to Ethan, a man whose steady heartbeat has been my anchor through every storm. We've settled into a cozy suburban home just outside Chicago, where the streets are lined with maple trees and the neighbors wave like they've known you forever. I spend my days as a graphic designer, crafting visuals that breathe life into ideas, while Ethan, ever the dependable one, works as a financial advisor, ensuring our future is as secure as our present. Ethan, he's the kind of man who makes you believe in the good stuff. Kind to a fault, always putting family first, he's the guy who remembers every anniversary with a handwritten note and a single daisy, just because he knows it's my favorite. But lately, as I trace the familiar lines of our life together, I've felt this quiet ache, a restlessness I can't pin down. It's not about him, not really. It's more about me, about the way the days blur into one another, each one a carbon copy of the last. I catch myself staring out this very window, wondering if this is all there is, if the fire that once burned so bright inside me has dimmed to a flicker. Our life isn't just the two of us, though. It's woven with the threads of Ethan's closest friends, 3 men who've been by his side since their college days, back when life was all late-night pizza runs and big dreams. They're like brothers to him, and over the years, they've become family to me too. First, there's Ryan, the real estate agent with a silver tongue and a grin that could charm the paint off a wall. He's the one who can turn any gathering into a riot of laughter, his quick wit slicing through even the dullest moments. Then there's Caleb, the software engineer, who's always a little apart, his eyes sharp and searching, like he's decoding the world in silence. He doesn't say much, but when he does, you listen. There's a weight to his words that lingers. And finally, Marcus, the personal trainer whose energy fills any room he's in. He's all confidence and strength, the kind of person who makes you feel alive just by standing near him, his presence like a pulse you can't ignore. These 3 have been constants in our world. They're there for every barbecue in our backyard, every game night where we argue over board games until midnight, every holiday where the house overflows with laughter and the clink of glasses. I've grown to love their quirks, their banter, the way. So there I was, on a crisp Friday evening in October, feeling the cool air nip at my skin as I stood in our bedroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. Ethan had come home earlier with this mysterious glint in his eye, telling me to dress up for a night out, but refusing to spill a single detail. "Just trust me, Bridget," he'd said, his voice warm and teasing, that twinkle of excitement in his gaze making my heart skip a beat. I couldn't help but grin back at him, caught up in the thrill of not knowing what he had up his sleeve. So, I slipped into a sleek black dress that hugged my curves just right, the fabric cool against my skin, and stepped into a pair of heels that clicked with every step. As I adjusted the thin straps on my shoulders, I felt this flutter of anticipation in my chest, like a kid waiting to unwrap a gift. We drove downtown, the city lights flickering past us like a sea of stars, and Ethan kept his hand steady on the wheel, a small smile playing on his lips every time I tried to pry for clues. I gave up eventually, letting the soft hum of the radio fill the silence, my mind racing with possibilities. When we finally pulled up to the historic Grand Theater, its towering marquee glowing against the night sky, my breath caught in my throat. The building was a masterpiece, all intricate stonework and old-world charm, a relic of a time when every night out felt like an event. And there, standing outside under the golden light of the entrance, were Ryan, Caleb, and Marcus, each of them dressed to the nines in sharp suits, grinning like they'd just pulled off some grand scheme. My eyes widened as I stepped out of the car, the chilly air brushing against my bare arms. "What are you guys doing here?" I asked, my voice a mix of surprise and delight. Ryan stepped forward first, his signature smirk in full force. "Oh, come on, Bridget. You didn't think we'd let Ethan have all the fun, did you?" he said, winking. Caleb, standing a little to the side, gave a small nod, his expression as unreadable as ever, while Marcus clapped Ethan on the shoulder, his laugh booming. "We've got something special for you tonight," Marcus added, and before I could ask what he meant, Ethan took my hand, squeezing it gently. "We all chipped in," he explained, his voice soft but brimming with pride. "Got tickets to that sold-out play you've been talking about for months, the one everyone's raving about." I felt my jaw drop, a rush of warmth spreading through me. They'd remembered. I'd been going on about this critically acclaimed production for weeks, lamenting how I'd never get to see it. And here they were, making it happen. It wasn't just the gesture, it was the thought behind it, the way they'd listened, the way they'd cared enough to pull this together. The first act of the play had me completely captivated, the actors weaving a story so intense I could feel every emotion rippling through the audience. But as the curtain fell for intermission, I felt a sudden need for a breather, a moment to collect myself. I leaned over to Ethan, his profile illuminated by the soft glow of the theater lights, and whispered that I'd be right back, just needed to use the restroom. He gave me a gentle smile, nodding as he squeezed my hand, and I slipped out of my seat, the plush velvet brushing against my dress as I made my way to the aisle. Navigating through the crowded lobby was like wading through a sea of murmurs and laughter, the hum of conversation buzzing in my ears. People milled about, clutching their programs, their voices blending into a low roar that seemed to echo off the grand walls of the theater. I moved toward the staircase, my heels clicking against the cool marble floor, the chill of it seeping through the thin soles. The hallway on the second floor was quieter, a tucked-away corner of the building where the noise of the crowd faded into a distant hum. I found the women's restroom at the end of the corridor, a small, dimly lit space that felt like a world apart from the opulence downstairs. I stood at the sink, letting the cold water run over my hands, the splash against the porcelain grounding me as I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked wider than usual, a little too bright, like they held something I couldn't quite name. That's when I heard the door creak open behind me. I turned, expecting to see another theater-goer, but my breath caught in my throat as Ryan, Caleb, and Marcus stepped inside. Their expressions were unreadable, a stark contrast to the easy camaraderie I was used to seeing. My heart skipped a beat, a nervous laugh escaping my lips as I asked if they'd gotten lost. This wasn't their space after all. Why were they here? Ryan took a step forward, his usual playful smirk gone, replaced by something raw, something I'd never seen in him before. His voice was low, almost unsteady, as he said they'd been holding something back for years, something they couldn't keep buried any longer. Before I could even process his words, Caleb spoke up, his quiet intensity cutting through the air like a blade. He said he'd always felt a connection with me, one he couldn't ignore no matter how hard he tried. And then Marcus, his confident demeanor faltering just enough to reveal the vulnerability beneath, admitted he'd dreamed of being with me, even though he knew it was wrong, knew it went against everything we'd built as a family. I stood there, frozen, the sound of water dripping from the faucet echoing in the silence that followed. My mind was a storm, thoughts crashing into one another, shock, guilt, confusion swirling together. But beneath it all, there was something else, a forbidden thrill I couldn't deny, no matter how much I wanted to. To my own horror, I realized I'd felt something for each of them over the years, feelings I'd buried deep beneath my loyalty to Ethan. Ryan's humor had always pulled me in, a warmth that made the world brighter. Caleb's depth, his quiet strength, had intrigued me in ways I couldn't articulate. And Marcus, his energy, his raw vitality, had sparked something primal in me, something I'd fought to ignore. Their confessions hung heavy in the air, and I felt the weight of my own suppressed desires pressing against me. I should have walked away, should have said something to stop this before it went any further. But I didn't. In that moment of weakness, overwhelmed by their words and the chaos inside me, I gave in. One of us reached for the door, locking it with a quiet click that seemed to seal our fate. What followed was a charged, reckless surrender, a tangle of urgency and unspoken longing. Their touches were electric, a rush of heat against the cold tile of the restroom wall, the contrast sending shivers through me. I lost myself in the forbidden, in the way we blurred every line that should have held us apart, each moment a desperate grasp at something. As I stepped out of that dimly lit restroom, the weight of what had just happened clung to me like a second skin, heavy and suffocating. My legs trembled beneath me, each step down the quiet hallway feeling like a betrayal of its own. The marble floor echoed under my heels, a sharp, accusing sound that seemed to scream my guilt to the empty corridor. My mind was a battlefield, shouting at me to pull it together, to act normal, to bury this secret so deep no one would ever find it. But every time I passed a gilded mirror on the wall, I couldn't help but steal a glance, and what I saw made my stomach twist. My reflection looked different. Flushed cheeks, eyes too wide, lips slightly swollen from stolen moments. It was as if the glass itself was exposing me, branding me with the truth of my actions. I stopped for a moment near the staircase, my hand gripping the cool brass railing for support. I forced myself to take a deep breath, smoothing my hair with shaky fingers, checking my makeup in the faint reflection of a nearby window. I plastered on a smile, practicing it like a mask, hoping it would hide the storm raging inside me. Each second felt like an eternity, but I knew I had to get back to my seat, back to Ethan, before anyone noticed how long I'd been gone. The thought of facing him, of sitting beside him as if nothing had changed, clawed at my chest. But I had no choice. I descended the stairs, the hum of the lobby crowd growing louder, a reminder of the normalcy I was supposed to slip back into. When I reached our row in the theater, the lights were already dimming for the second act. I slid into my seat next to Ethan, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. He was engrossed in the program, his brow furrowed slightly as he read the cast bios, completely unaware of the chaos I'd just unleashed. I murmured a soft apology for taking so long, my voice barely above a whisper, and he just nodded, offering a small, absent-minded smile without even looking up. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting, replaced almost instantly by a gnawing guilt that settled deep in my bones. How could he not see it? How could he not sense the shift in me? The way I felt like a stranger in my own skin. Moments later, I heard the faint rustle of movement as Ryan, Caleb, and Marcus returned to their seats on my other side. They moved with a casual ease that made my skin crawl, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened, as if we hadn't just crossed a line there was no coming back from. I kept my eyes fixed on the stage, but I could feel their presence like a physical weight, each of them carrying a piece of the secret we now shared. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Ryan's smirk, that familiar curve of his lips that now felt like a taunt, a silent reminder of the heat we'd shared. Caleb's gaze was unreadable as always, but when I dared to glance his way, his eyes met mine for a split second, piercing and heavy with something I couldn't decipher. And Marcus, he gave a subtle nod as he settled into his seat, a gesture so small it could have been nothing, but to me, it felt like an acknowledgement, a quiet stamp on the forbidden pact we'd made. The second half of the play began, the actors' voices ringing out with passion and drama, but their words were nothing more than a blur to me. I sat there, trapped in the cage of my own thoughts, replaying every moment from that restroom over and over until it burned behind my closed eyelids. The dialogue on stage melted into a meaningless hum, drowned out by the roar of my guilt and the memory of hands on my skin, of whispered confessions and the rush of giving in. I felt like I was suffocating, the plush velvet of the seat pressing against me, the air in the theater too thick to breathe. Every so often, I'd catch a whiff of Ryan's cologne, or hear the faint shift of Caleb's jacket, and it would send a jolt through me, a cruel reminder of here I am, sitting in a dimly lit bar just a few blocks from the Grand Theater, the faint hum of jazz weaving through the air like a secret whisper. The booth we've claimed is tucked into a corner, the worn leather seats creaking under us as the group, Ethan, Ryan, Caleb, Marcus, and I settle in with cocktails in hand. The amber liquid in my glass catches the low light, shimmering as I lift it to my lips, but I'm barely tasting it. Laughter erupts around me, the guys recapping the play with animated gestures, their voices overlapping in a familiar rhythm. Ethan's recounting a dramatic scene with such enthusiasm, his eyes bright, while Ryan throws in a witty jab about the lead actor's over-the-top monologue. I force a smile, nodding at the right moments, but my mind is 1,000 miles away, tangled in a web of dread that tightens with every passing second. I'm terrified of being discovered, of the fragile mask I've put on slipping just enough for someone to see the truth beneath. Ethan's arm is draped casually around my shoulder, a gesture that used to feel like a warm embrace, a safe harbor. Now, it's a cage. Each point of contact a reminder of the betrayal I'm carrying. His fingers brush against my arm absent-mindedly, as he laughs at something Caleb says, and I stiffen, my breath catching in my throat. I can't shake the feeling that I don't deserve this closeness, not after what happened during intermission. My eyes dart around the table, searching for any sign that the others might let something slip, that the weight of our shared secret might crack under the pressure of this casual night out. Then Ryan leans back in his seat, his glass half raised, and makes a comment that slices through the noise like a knife. "Man, that intermission was intense, wasn't it?" he says, his tone light, but laced with something sharper, something that makes my blood run cold. Ethan chuckles, oblivious, taking a sip of his drink and nodding in agreement, probably thinking Ryan's just talking about the play's tension. But I see it. The glint in Ryan's eye, a flicker of mischief or maybe something darker, like he's testing the waters. My gaze flicks to Caleb and Marcus, and I catch the quick, almost imperceptible glance they exchange, a silent communication that sends a shiver down my spine. My heart pounds so hard I'm sure it's audible over the clink of glasses and the murmur of other patrons. Are they toying with me? Is this some kind of game? A thrill for them to dance on the edge of exposure? Or is it guilt, gnawing at them just as it's eating me alive? I can't tell, and that uncertainty is a vice around my chest. I need air, a moment to escape the suffocating weight of their knowing looks. "I'm gonna grab another drink," I mumble, sliding out of the booth with a forced smile, my voice barely steady. Ethan nods, still caught up in the conversation, and I weave through the crowd toward the bar, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. The bar is a polished slab of dark wood, lined with bottles that gleam under the soft overhead lights, and I lean against it, gripping the edge as if it's the only thing keeping me upright. I'm trying to steady my breathing, to push down the panic clawing at my insides when I sense someone beside me. I turn my head just enough to see Marcus, his broad frame looming as he steps close under the pretense of helping me carry drinks back. His presence is overwhelming, a reminder of the charged moments we shared, the way boundaries dissolved in a haze of forbidden heat. He leans in, his voice low, almost a murmur against the background noise of the bar. "Do you regret it, Bridget?" he asks, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that makes my stomach twist. The question hangs between us, heavy and loaded, and I'm torn in two. Part of me wants to scream that I do, to fall to my knees and beg him to keep this buried, to never let it see the light of day. I want to tell him how here I am, lying in bed later that night, the darkness of our bedroom wrapping around me like a heavy shroud. Ethan sleeps beside me, his breathing slow and even, a peaceful rhythm that contrasts sharply with the storm raging inside my chest. The familiar scent of his cologne lingers on the sheets, a reminder of the life we've built, the trust I've shattered. I stare at the ceiling, my eyes tracing invisible patterns in the shadows, unable to close them for even a moment. Every time I try, I see flashes of what happened in that theater restroom, those stolen, reckless moments of heat and longing that I can't erase. I feel the ghost of touches that shouldn't have been, the weight of whispered words that crossed every boundary. My heart aches with the memory of Ryan's intense gaze, Caleb's quiet but piercing look, and Marcus's raw energy, each of them a piece of the secret that now binds us in silence. How did I let myself fall so far? How did I betray the man lying next to me, who's given me nothing but love and steadiness for 8 years. The guilt is suffocating, a physical weight pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. It's not just about what I did. It's about who I've become in the aftermath. I've turned into someone I don't recognize, someone who could throw away everything for a fleeting rush of forbidden desire. I keep replaying every second of that night at the bar after the play, the way I forced smiles and laughter while my insides twisted with dread. Marcus's question at the bar, whether I regretted it, echoes in my mind like a broken record. Do I? The answer isn't simple. There's a part of me that's horrified by my actions, that wishes I could turn back time and walk away before things spiraled out of control. But there's another part, a quieter, darker part, that still feels the electric pull of those moments, the way they made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. And that scares me more than anything. I turn my head slightly, watching Ethan's face in the dim moonlight filtering through the curtains. His features are soft, unguarded in sleep, and it cuts me deeper than any words could. He doesn't know the storm inside me, doesn't know the betrayal I'm carrying like a second heartbeat. I can't keep this from him. I can't live with this secret eating away at me, poisoning every touch, every shared glance. I have to tell him, even if it means losing everything. The thought of confessing makes my stomach churn, but the thought of hiding it forever is worse. I owe him the truth, no matter how much it hurts us both. As I lie there, the decision solidifies in my mind, heavy and inevitable. Tomorrow I'll tell him. Tomorrow I'll face the consequences of what I've done. The next morning, the kitchen feels like a battlefield as I stand by the counter, the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. The sunlight streams through the window, casting long shadows across the table where Ethan sits, sipping from his mug, completely unaware of the bomb I'm about to drop. My hands tremble as I grip my own cup, the warmth doing nothing to steady me. I've barely slept, my eyes heavy with exhaustion and unshed tears, but I know I can't put this off any longer. I set the cup down with a soft clink, the sound louder than it should be in the quiet room, and I take a shaky breath. Ethan, we need to talk, I say, my voice barely above a whisper, but it's enough to make him look up, his brow furrowing with concern. He sets his mug down, his full attention on me now, and I feel the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. My heart is pounding so hard I'm sure he can hear it, and my palms are slick with sweat as I sit across from him. I don't know how to start. Don't know how to find the words to shatter the world we've built together. But I force myself to speak, my voice cracking as I begin. Something happened last night. With your friends. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.